Admiral Davis stood on the bridge of the UES Defender, Earth's flagship, as the alien fleet entered the solar system. Humanity had known this day would come for years. The Vorn, a species known throughout the galaxy as peacekeepers, had arrived with a singular purpose: to disarm what they deemed a volatile and unpredictable species. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the lead vessel," Lieutenant Reed announced, her voice steady despite the tension filling the bridge. "Put it through," Davis ordered, squaring his shoulders. The main view screen flickered to life, revealing a tall, blue-skinned humanoid with large, reflective eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. "I am High Commander Trell of the Vorn Interstellar Peacekeeping Force," the alien announced. "We come with peaceful intent to negotiate the surrender of your military capabilities." Davis kept his face neutral. "This is Admiral Davis of the United Earth Space Force. We welcome peaceful dialogue, but we do not surrender our sovereignty." Trell's smooth face showed no emotion. "You misunderstand, Admiral. This is not a request. The Galactic Council has observed your species for decades. Your history is drenched in blood, your development accelerated by warfare. Left unchecked, you pose a threat to galactic stability." The bridge crew exchanged glances. They had prepared for this possibility. The Vorn's reputation preceded them. They had disarmed 17 species already, always with the same justification: safety for the greater galactic community. "Commander Trell, we request a formal meeting with your leadership before any decisions are made," Davis countered. "As is our right under Galactic Charter Section 12, which grants all sentient species the opportunity to present their case." Trell seemed surprised that humans were familiar with the Charter. "Very well. A delegation may board our vessel in 12 Earth hours." After the transmission ended, Davis turned to his second-in-command, Captain Martinez. "Alert the diplomatic team and activate Protocol Babel." Martinez nodded grimly. Protocol Babel was humanity's contingency plan for this exact scenario. Named after the ancient tower that confused languages, it had been put in place 5 years ago, when human intelligence first learned of the Vorn's systematic disarmament campaigns. While the diplomatic team prepared, Earth's hidden fleet mobilized in the shadow of Neptune, invisible to Vorn sensors thanks to technology reverse-engineered from a crashed alien scout ship decades earlier. The weapons weren't their only secret. 12 hours later, the diplomatic team boarded the Vorn vessel. Leading them was Dr. Emily Thompson, Earth's foremost xenolinguist and cultural specialist. Behind her calm exterior lay humanity's greatest hope: not a weapon, but something potentially more powerful. The Vorn delegation led them to a large chamber with a circular table. High Commander Trell sat opposite Thompson, flanked by various officials. The walls displayed holographic images of Earth's military history, wars, nuclear tests, and space-based weapons platforms. "Your species has created over 14,000 distinct weapons throughout your recorded history," Trell began without preamble. "No other species we've encountered has shown such creativity in this regard." Dr. Thompson smiled politely. "Commander, before we begin formal negotiations, we've prepared a cultural exchange gift as is customary in our diplomatic traditions." She nodded to her assistant, who placed a small device on the table. It projected a hologram of Earth, rotating slowly. "This contains samples of human artistic expression, music, literature, visual arts, spanning our history," Thompson explained. "We believe understanding should precede judgment." Trell looked unimpressed, but nodded. "We will examine your cultural artifacts. However, the Council's decision is not likely to change." What the Vorn didn't realize was that humanity's greatest weapons had never been the ones that fired projectiles or released energy. Thompson activated the device with a subtle gesture, initiating Protocol Babel's first phase. The real negotiation was about to begin. The Vorn delegation spent 3 days examining humanity's cultural package, though Dr. Thompson knew they were merely following protocol. Their decision had been made long before they entered Earth's solar system. Meanwhile, the diplomatic team was confined to luxurious, but closely monitored quarters aboard the Vorn command ship. "They're stalling," Captain Lewis whispered during their morning briefing in Thompson's quarters, which they assumed was bugged. "They've already deployed survey teams to catalog our military installations." Thompson nodded slightly. As expected, protocol babble needs time anyway. The cultural package they'd presented contained far more than art and music. Embedded within were specially designed conceptual frameworks, ideas that worked like cognitive seeds, designed to take root in the Vorn mental architecture. Dr. Thompson's team had spent years studying the few Vorn texts they'd managed to acquire, analyzing their language patterns, cognitive structures, and philosophical blind spots. On the fourth day, Thompson was summoned back to the negotiation chamber. This time, only High Commander Trell was present. "Your cultural offerings are interesting," Trell began, his voice carrying a slight hesitation that hadn't been there before. "However, they change nothing. We have cataloged 70% of Earth's offensive capabilities. The disarmament will begin tomorrow." Thompson had expected this. "Commander, I wonder if you've had the opportunity to experience our musical compositions, particularly those employing what we call harmony." Trell's eyes narrowed slightly. "I have. Your species' preoccupation with combining discordant sounds is peculiar." "Not discordant," Thompson corrected gently. "Different notes that, when played together, create something greater than their individual parts, much like how different perspectives can combine to form a more complete understanding." "An interesting philosophical point, but irrelevant to our purpose," Trell replied, though Thompson noticed his speech patterns had already begun to shift subtly. "Perhaps, but since we still have time before your operation begins, would you join me in another cultural exchange? I'd like to learn more about Vorn art forms." Trell seemed surprised by the request but agreed. What followed was a 6-hour conversation about Vorn artistic expression, which, Thompson discovered, was primarily focused on symmetry and mathematical perfection. There was no concept of art as emotional expression or as representing conflicting viewpoints. Back in her quarters that evening, Thompson updated her team. "Phase 1 is taking hold. The Vorn have no cultural framework for managing contradictions. Their entire civilization is built on consensus and uniformity. Our introduction of conceptual dissonance is creating cognitive friction." Captain Lewis looked skeptical. "You think philosophical concepts can stop a fleet of warships?" "Not by themselves," Thompson replied. "But they create openings. The Vorn believe they understand us completely. Violent, unpredictable, dangerous. What happens when they discover their understanding is fundamentally incomplete?" The next morning, Trell requested Thompson's presence again, this time in what appeared to be his private study. The chamber walls displayed Earth's artistic masterpieces alongside Vorn mathematical art. "These works of yours," Trell began, gesturing toward an image of Van Gogh's Starry Night. "They are imprecise, chaotic, yet I find myself unable to stop examining them." Thompson smiled. "We call that quality compelling. Sometimes imperfection speaks to us more profoundly than perfection." "A dangerous concept," Trell murmured, but his eyes remained fixed on the swirling stars. Protocol babble was working. The conceptual seeds were taking root. When the Vorn disarmament teams descended to Earth 1 week later, they were met not with resistance but with invitations. Every military base scheduled for decommissioning welcomed them with cultural exhibitions. Museums have been set up overnight in hangars that once housed fighter jets. Concert halls established in missile silos. Libraries arranged in ammunition bunkers. High Commander Trell, monitoring from orbit, grew increasingly concerned as his team's reports focused less on weapons cataloging and more on cultural discoveries. "Team 7 has failed to report on the submarine base's nuclear capacity," he remarked to his second-in-command, Officer Merrick. "Instead, they've sent 16 messages about human underwater photography and marine conservation efforts." Merrick reviewed the incoming data streams. "Similar patterns from Teams 3, 9, and 12, Commander." and Team 5 requested permission to extend their mission by 3 days tow. He paused, double-checking the translation. Participate in something called a film festival on military history. Trell's reflective eyes narrowed. This is deliberate. The humans are distracting our teams from their primary mission. Should we recall them? Merrick asked. No. Trell decided after a moment. That would only confirm their strategy is working. Order all teams to focus solely on disarmament operations. No more cultural exchanges. But the Vorn teams found this directive increasingly difficult to follow. The humans they encountered didn't behave like a species under threat of disarmament. Instead of hostility or desperation, they displayed curiosity and engagement. They asked questions about Vorn culture, history, and biology that the teams weren't prepared to answer, questions that many had never considered about themselves. Aboard the UES Defender, Admiral Davis received regular updates from Dr. Thompson. Protocol Babel is proceeding faster than anticipated, she reported. The conceptual frameworks are propagating through their communication networks. Their hierarchical command structure is actually accelerating the effect. When higher-ranking Vorn try to process and filter the conflicting information, they themselves become vectors. What's the practical effect? Davis asked. Confusion leading to curiosity, Thompson explained. The Vorn operate on absolute certainty. When that certainty is undermined, their training compels them to seek new understanding before acting. It's buying us time while Phase 2 deploys. Phase 2 was already unfolding across Earth. While the Vorn teams cataloged weapons systems, humans demonstrated something the aliens had never encountered: the repurposing of military technology for peaceful applications. Former weapons scientists explained how missile guidance systems had been adapted for emergency medical delivery drones, military-grade encryption protecting privacy for vulnerable populations, defense early warning systems repurposed to track endangered species migrations. One Vorn team leader, confused by these demonstrations, finally asked the question that Protocol Babel had been designed to provoke. If your species is capable of this transformation of purpose, why maintain weapons at all? The human guide, a former general, smiled. Because transformation requires choice, and choice requires capability. We maintain the capacity for both creation and destruction because we believe the conscious choice to create is what defines us. That answer, seemingly simple, could not be processed through standard Vorn philosophical frameworks. It created the cognitive equivalent of a division by zero error. By the end of the second week, reports from the disarmament teams had decreased by 60%. 3 teams formally requested to suspend operations pending cultural consultations. One team leader explicitly questioned the mission parameters, asking whether human military capability might actually be serving as a check against their destructive potential rather than an expression of it. High Commander Trell, sensing the mission slipping away, decided to take direct action. He would personally lead the disarmament of humanity's most powerful weapons facility, the Quantum Defense Laboratory in what humans called the Rocky Mountains. What he didn't know was that Dr. Thompson had been specifically preparing for his arrival. The Quantum Defense Laboratory didn't look like a weapons facility. As Trell's shuttle descended toward the complex nestled in the mountains, he saw gardens, glass-domed structures, and what appeared to be recreational areas. No visible defenses, no armaments. The architectural style emphasized openness rather than security. This contradicts our intelligence, Trell remarked to the squad of Vorn enforcers accompanying him. Maintain vigilance. Human deception is well documented. They were greeted at the landing pad by Dr. Alan West, the facility's director, a gray-haired human with an easy smile and no visible weapons. Welcome to QDL, Commander Trell. We've been expecting you. Trell remained formal. We are here to inspect and neutralize your quantum weaponry. Our scans indicate this facility houses technology capable of manipulating subspace fields in ways that could destabilize entire star systems. You're not wrong about our capabilities, Dr. West acknowledged, leading them toward the main building. But you may have misunderstood their purpose. Let me show you. Inside, instead of the military personnel Trell expected, he found scientists of various ages working in open laboratories. The central chamber housed an enormous quantum field generator, technology the Vorn had banned in 17 solar systems due to its weapons potential. "This is your primary weapons system," Trell stated, gesturing to the massive device. Dr. West shook his head. "This is our primary research tool. Would you like to see what we're working on?" Before Trell could object, West activated a holographic display. It showed a star, destabilizing, collapsing, then stabilizing again. "This is Proxima Centauri," West explained. "Our nearest stellar neighbor. Like many red dwarfs, it experiences flare activity that would make potential habitable zones uninhabitable. We're developing field technology that could moderate stellar behavior." Trell studied the simulation. This technology could equally be used to destabilize stars. "Yes," West agreed simply. "Just as a scalpel can heal or harm. The differentiating factor isn't the tool, Commander. It's the intent." This concept, that capability and purpose could be separated, struck at the foundation of Vorn peacekeeping philosophy. Their entire approach to galactic security was built around eliminating capability to prevent harmful action. "You willingly acknowledge this technology could be weaponized," Trell said slowly, "yet you expect us to trust your claimed intentions." Dr. West smiled. "I never said anything about trust, Commander. I'm simply showing you reality. Would you like to see our other projects?" Over the next 4 hours, Trell was shown technology after technology with dual-use potential. Quantum entanglement systems that could communicate instantaneously across vast distances or potentially disrupt enemy communications. Gravity manipulation fields that could terraform dead worlds or crush opposing fleets. Subatomic restructuring tools that could eliminate pollution or atomize populations. What disturbed Trell most wasn't the technology itself, but the transparency with which it was shown. The humans made no attempt to hide the destructive potential of their work. Instead, they demonstrated how each technology was being developed for constructive applications, while openly acknowledging their dual-use nature. "Our final project may interest you most," Dr. West said, leading Trell to a smaller laboratory where a team worked around what appeared to be a simple clear cube. "This is what we call the translation matrix." "Another weapon?" Trell asked, his voice carrying a weariness that surprised even him. "No," West replied. "This is purely about understanding. It's designed to bridge conceptual frameworks between species to allow true comprehension across radically different cognitive architectures." Trell stared at the device. "You developed this recently." West hesitated, then answered truthfully. "We accelerated its development when we learned the Vorn might be coming. We hoped it might help you understand us better than your previous observations had allowed." Trell realized then what had been happening since the humans first offered their cultural package. They had been systematically dismantling the Vorn's conceptual framework, not to destroy it, but to create space for something new. As he left the facility that evening, Trell found himself facing a troubling question. What if the Vorn's approach to peace was itself fundamentally flawed? The Vorn Council ship arrived 3 days later, summoned by Trell's disturbing reports. Elder Vex, the Council's representative, was ancient even by Vorn standards. His blue skin faded to a pale azure with age. He had overseen the peaceful disarmament of 7 species personally, and wasn't about to let humans become the first failure. "Your reports are concerning, High Commander," Elder Vex said as they walked the corridors of the command ship. "You speak of cognitive contamination, philosophical challenges, dual-purpose technologies. These are distractions from our purpose." Trell chose his words carefully. "Elder, I believe we may need to reconsider our approach with humans. They are different from previous species we've encountered." "Different how?" Vex asked sharply. "More violent, more deceptive, more integrated," Trell replied. "Their capacity for destruction and creation aren't separated as we assumed. Their weapons development, and peaceful applications evolve in tandem. Vex dismissed this with a wave, a clever justification for maintaining military capability. We've heard similar arguments before. With respect, Elder, I don't believe we have, Trell countered. The Skith maintained weapons out of fear, the Brel out of tradition. The humans, they view capability itself as neutral, defined by choice, rather than intrinsic purpose. Vex's eyes narrowed. You sound as though you're adopting their perspective, Commander. Perhaps you've been exposed to their influence too long. The rebuke stung, but Trell pressed on. I request that you meet with them personally before we proceed with forced disarmament. Their translation matrix technology alone merits consideration. Translation matrix. Vex's interest was piqued despite his skepticism. A technology designed to bridge different conceptual frameworks between species, Trell explained. Initial tests suggest it allows for understanding beyond conventional translation. Vex considered this. The Vorn had encountered communication barriers with several species before. A technology that could overcome such obstacles would be valuable to the Council's peacekeeping mission. Very well, he finally conceded. Arrange a demonstration of this technology. But be aware, Commander, that I am not as easily influenced as your disarmament teams appear to have been. The demonstration was scheduled for the following day at a neutral location, a space station in Earth orbit. Dr. Thompson would represent humanity, bringing the translation matrix prototype. Elder Vex, despite his caution, was curious about this technology that had apparently caused such uncertainty in one of his most reliable commanders. When they arrived at the station, Thompson was waiting with a small team of humans and the device Trell had seen at the laboratory. It seemed smaller now, more refined. Elder Vex, Thompson greeted him with the formal Vorn gesture of respect. We appreciate your willingness to experience the translation matrix. Vex studied the human carefully. Commander Trell believes your technology offers unique insights. I remain skeptical but open to demonstration. Thompson nodded. The matrix doesn't translate words. Translators already do that effectively. It translates perspectives, allowing you to temporarily experience a concept through another species' cognitive framework. Dangerous, Vex commented. Cognitive integrity is essential to judgment. Perhaps, Thompson acknowledged. But how can one judge what one cannot understand? The experience is temporary, and you maintain awareness throughout. After a thorough security scan of the device, Vex reluctantly agreed to proceed. The operation was simple. He would place his hand on one side of the cube, Thompson on the other, while focusing on a specific concept they wished to share. What concept shall we explore? Vex asked. Thompson met his gaze steadily. The purpose of weapons. Vex hesitated, then nodded. It was, after all, the heart of their disagreement. He placed his hand on the cube opposite Thompson's and felt an immediate tingling sensation that spread from his palm to his mind. What followed was unlike anything in his 900 years of existence. He experienced, not just understood intellectually, but experienced the human perspective on capability and choice. He felt the weight of their history, the constant internal struggle between creation and destruction. Most shockingly, he experienced the fundamental human belief that peace maintained solely through inability was no peace at all, merely a different form of prison. When the connection ended, Vex stood silently for several minutes, processing what he had experienced. Finally, he turned to Trell. I understand your reports better now, Commander, he said quietly. We must reconsider our approach. The Vorn fleet remained in Earth orbit for a month following Elder Vex's experience with the translation matrix. But instead of proceeding with disarmament operations, they entered into what humans called cultural exchange programs. Vorn specialists in various fields visited Earth facilities, while human experts were invited aboard Vorn vessels. Admiral Davis watched these developments with cautious optimism from the bridge of the UES Defender. They haven't withdrawn the disarmament order, he noted to Captain Martinez, but they haven't enforced it either. Dr. Thompson believes Elder Vex is building consensus among the Council. Martins replied. Apparently, changing 9,000 years of Vorn peacekeeping doctrine requires substantial evidence. On the Vorn command ship, that process was proving challenging. Elder Vex faced resistance from council members who had not experienced the translation matrix. What you propose is unprecedented. Council member Bryn argued during their secure communication. No species has been exempted from disarmament once the process began. I am not suggesting exemption, Vex countered. I am suggesting our definition of disarmament may be too narrow. The humans have shown us something we've not considered, that weapons and tools differ primarily in application, not intrinsic nature. A convenient philosophy for a species unwilling to surrender its military advantage, another council member commented. Vex activated a holographic display showing data collected over the past month. Review the evidence. Human history shows 17 major conflicts in the past century alone, more than any species we've encountered. Yet they've never expanded beyond their solar system, despite having the capability for over 50 years. Their restraint contradicts our assessment. The debate continued for weeks, with Vex gradually gaining support. Meanwhile, on Earth, strange transformations were occurring within Vorn ranks. Disarmament specialists found themselves engaged in philosophical discussions with human counterparts. Military analysts began studying human art and literature for insights into their contradictory nature. Commander Trell, once the mission's staunchest supporter, had become its most thoughtful critic. He spent hours with Dr. Thompson, exploring the implications of the translation matrix. Your technology could revolutionize interspecies relations, he told her during one such session. Not just between Vorn and humans, but throughout the galactic community. Thompson nodded. That's our hope, but it requires willingness on both sides to experience unfamiliar perspectives. A willingness the Vorn have historically lacked, Trell acknowledged. Our certainty in our approach to peace has become rigid over millennia. Certainty can be comfortable, Thompson replied. It's why many humans cling to simplified worldviews rather than embracing complexity. How do you maintain cohesion as a species with such divergent viewpoints? Trell asked, genuinely puzzled. The Vorn achieved peace through consensus thousands of years ago. Thompson smiled. We don't always maintain cohesion. That's part of our story, constant fragmentation and reintegration of ideas. We believe the friction itself generates progress. This concept, that conflict could be constructive rather than merely destructive, was perhaps the most alien idea the Vorn had encountered. It challenged their most fundamental assumptions about civilization's proper development. After 42 days in Earth orbit, the Vorn Council reached its decision. Elder Vex summoned Admiral Davis, Dr. Thompson, and key Earth officials to the command ship for the formal announcement. The chamber was arranged differently than during previous meetings. Instead of the hierarchical arrangement typical of Vorn formal settings, the seating formed a circle with no position of prominence. We have concluded our assessment of human civilization, Elder Vex began. For 9,000 years, the Vorn have pursued galactic peace through a single doctrine, removing the capacity for large-scale violence from emerging species. This approach has prevented 17 interstellar conflicts and saved countless lives. He paused, looking at each human representative in turn. However, our doctrine contains a fundamental assumption. That capacity inevitably leads to action. Humanity has demonstrated this assumption may be flawed. Your history shows tremendous capacity for violence, yet also remarkable restraint in its application beyond your own world. Admiral Davis maintained a neutral expression, but inwardly felt vindication. Protocol Babel had accomplished what military resistance never could. It had made the Vorn question their own certainty. Therefore, Vex continued, we propose a new approach. Rather than disarmament, we offer partnership. The translation matrix technology could transform interspecies relations throughout the galaxy. We offer our knowledge of 17 civilizations and thousands of years of peacekeeping in exchange for your technology and perspective. Thompson and Davis exchanged glances. This was an outcome they had hoped for, but hadn't dared expect, not merely avoiding disarmament, but gaining recognition as equals. "We accept your proposal," Thompson replied, "with one condition, that this partnership extends to other species as well. The translation matrix should be available to all civilizations ready to use it responsibly." Vex nodded slowly. "Agreed, though this will require significant adjustments to Vorn policy." "Change always does," Thompson said with a smile. 5 years after the Vorn fleet entered Earth's solar system, the Galactic Accords were signed aboard Earth's first interstellar diplomatic vessel, the UES Harmony. The massive ship, built with both human ingenuity and Vorn technical assistance, served as neutral territory for the 23 species in attendance. Admiral Davis, now promoted to Fleet Admiral, stood beside High Commander Trell as they watched representatives file into the Grand Assembly Chamber. The chamber's design itself symbolized the new philosophy underpinning the Accords, neither purely human nor Vorn, but something new that incorporated elements from all signatory species. "Did you expect this outcome when you ordered Protocol Babel?" Trell asked quietly. Davis shook his head. "We hope to avoid disarmament. Creating a new paradigm for interspecies relations was beyond our expectations." "You were prepared to fight," Trell observed. "It wasn't a question." "Yes," Davis admitted. "The Neptune fleet was ready, but it would have been a last resort, and likely a futile one." Trell nodded. "And now those same ships serve as your first exploratory fleet, with Vorn observers aboard," Davis added. As agreed, the Galactic Accords represented a fundamental shift in the approach to interstellar peace. Rather than enforced disarmament, they established a framework of shared responsibility. Species would maintain self-defense capabilities, but submit to mutual observation and regular translation matrix exchanges to ensure genuine understanding of intentions and perspectives. Dr. Thompson, now serving as Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council, took the podium as the ceremony began. 5 years ago, two civilizations with profoundly different understandings of peace faced a choice between conflict and compromise, she began. Today, we celebrate not just the avoidance of that conflict, but the creation of something neither side could have achieved alone. The translation matrix technology had evolved dramatically under joint development. What began as a prototype capable of linking two individuals now facilitated multi-species understanding on an unprecedented scale. Diplomatic negotiations that once took years could be resolved in days through direct experiential exchange. But perhaps more significant was the philosophical revolution within Vorn society. After 9 millennia of unwavering certainty in their approach to peace, they had embraced complexity and contradiction, concepts once considered dangerous to their social harmony. Elder Vex, who had become the strongest advocate for the new approach within the Vorn Council, addressed the assembly next. "For too long, the Vorn defined peace as the absence of capability for violence," he stated. "Humans showed us that true peace requires something more challenging, the presence of capability paired with the conscious choice not to use it destructively." He gestured to the diverse assembly. "Many of you feared humanity's entry into the galactic community. Their history of conflict, their technological innovation rate, their biological diversity, all suggested a disruptive presence. Some advocated for their isolation or constraint." Murmurs of acknowledgement rippled through the chamber. "Yet in 5 years, they have contributed more to interspecies understanding than many civilizations have in centuries," Vex continued. "The translation matrix alone has resolved 3 territorial disputes that had resisted traditional diplomatic approaches for generations." After the formal signing, Admiral Davis found himself standing beside Ambassador Thompson at the observation deck, looking out at Earth shining in the distance. "They came to disarm us," Davis mused, "and instead, we changed the definition of armament itself." Thompson smiled. "We did something better than disarm them or ourselves. We created a system where armament itself is no longer the primary concern." "Do you think it will last?" Davis asked. "No system lasts forever," Thompson replied. "But this one acknowledges that fact. It's designed to evolve. That gives it a better chance than most. As the celebration continued around them, news arrived that would test the young alliance immediately. A previously unknown species had been detected at the edge of explored space, with technology suggesting advanced weapons capability. In the past, the Vorn would have immediately dispatched a disarmament fleet. Now, Elder Vex approached the human and Vorn leadership with different proposal. "We should send a joint contact mission," he suggested, "with translation matrix technology aboard." High Commander Trell nodded in agreement, a first contact approach based on understanding rather than assessment. Admiral Davis considered the proposal. "We'll need to be cautious. Not every species may be receptive to such technology." "Certainly," Vex agreed. "But even if they reject the matrix, our approach itself communicates a message that we seek understanding before judgment." As preparations began for the contact mission, Davis reflected on the irony of their position. The Vorn had arrived at Earth determined to eliminate humanity's capacity for violence, fearing what they might do with their weapons. Now, humans and Vorn worked together, using technology originally designed to prevent disarmament to forge connections with new civilizations. They had come to disarm humanity and found themselves transformed instead, their certainty dismantled, their perspective expanded, their approach to peace fundamentally altered. In seeking to neutralize humanity's weapons, they had encountered something far more powerful: humanity's capacity to turn enemies into allies through understanding. And that, perhaps, was humanity's greatest capability of all.